One of the most interesting things about business is that you win some and you lose some. Microsoft right now is getting dragged, but I think it's getting dragged by a lot of people who seem to have taken a lot out of context or who are not necessarily paying very close attention to the overall body of what's going on. I usually stay away from these console conversations around 2020 when I made my first set of videos talking about where I thought the direction of these two companies were going. I got a lot of these comments with people saying, oh, you seem to be an Xbox fan or you're biased against Sony or whatever it is. The truth is consoles are dead to me. Many of you already know this. I'm not buying another console. And even for my children, I'm moving them to gaming PCs. The only console that they're actively using, and that's the youngest ones, is a Nintendo Switch. The moment they hit a milestone in their academics, they get moved to a gaming PC. They're not going to touch a PS5 or Xbox Series, whatever the heck it is, because those ecosystems, they don't allow for you to be able to have a lot of options like you can get on PC. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. No more buying consoles in this video game fight school household. You can buy consoles for all you want, but I've already said the reasons why in many other videos. But we're going to look closely at a few different aspects because I strongly believe that many people are not really taking into account how Microsoft's business strategy actually is fulfilling exactly what it is meant to fulfill. And Sony's business strategy is also doing so, but people perceive, and that's the only thing, perception is that people are seeing Microsoft not fulfilling Sony's business idea as Microsoft, basically failing. So let's dial back a little bit. There are two games here. Game number one is that Sony is running with the exclusivity, page out of that book. We're bringing out these games. These games, people love them. And it's very, exciting. We're selling more consoles. And according to people say that they lose money on these consoles anyways. So they're making these games to bring people into their ecosystem. Ideally, the consoles are not necessarily a big part, in terms of profitability, but they are a tool to bring people into the ecosystem to buy games in their libraries and then dial in and stay there. So that's Sony's business model. Is it profitable? Heck yeah, it is. It's getting the job done. Now, when you come to Microsoft's own business strategy and their ideas, you also can go ahead and say, well, what is Microsoft doing? Microsoft is also making games. They're bringing out titles that are appealing to people. And even when you look at, say, the year 2023, they have titles to show that they're actually getting good games out there. For some people, because the games are not $70 God of War, everybody is playing a Hollywood role game, they just consider it is not necessarily enough. And this to me doesn't seem to make any sense. Games are there for you to be able to play and have fun. So Hi-Fi Rush is a straight W in anybody's book. It doesn't matter if you're going to be saying, it's not necessarily a AAA game. No one gives a hoot. Is it a good game? Yes. Is it overwhelmingly positively reviewed? Heck yes. So that is a win. You start to count the scores and you see that this is something that really works for Microsoft in their ecosystems. They go ahead and they also drop a game, Wolong, that's on Game Pass for the $70 price tag, but you can get it for your subscription of $14 a month or $120 a year, depending on which one you're going for. Then they go ahead and, recruit the Atomic Heart game as well for the 2023 timeline. So basically in that window, they'd already brought out anywhere close to $200 worth of video games at a price of about $120 a year if you're subscribed either on PC or either on the Xbox platform. Then they had their Minecraft Legends game. Depending on how you vibe with Minecraft, I will never touch Minecraft. It's not a game for me, but it is still a value proposition where you can play whatever it is that they charge for Minecraft. And you can pretty much understand that, okay, maybe this is a game that I may not play, but it still brings a value for players. Then they also had Monster Hunter Rise as a day one title on Game Pass. So when you add up all these wins that they've had and you actually come and look at, say, a huge L like Redfall, for anybody to think that Redfall has now toppled over the Microsoft brand, that is dead on the most asinine analysis that you can ever come up with. Now, if Redfall was, say, in a chemistry lab, some kind of, contaminant, we could say, you've contaminated the entire solution. But it's one video game from a studio, Arcane Austin, that seems to be, maybe kind of getting their bearings together. And so the way people have reacted over Redfall to me makes me go, Are gamers kind of insane? Like, do people really have such short-term memories where they don't really remember that just a few months ago, a lot of these pundits that were, basically harping on how Redfall is bad were praising Microsoft about Hi-Fi Rush, basically saying Microsoft can do this. Microsoft has got this. They did the showcase for Forza. Then, they were singing the praises. It was these same people. Go look at their YouTube channels. Go look at all of them. And then all of a sudden, Phil Spencer is like, yo, we want to make sure that we can pretty much have our strategy to win. And these people all lose their minds. This is why sometimes my, heart rate rises when I, basically consider how a lot of people act on the internet when it comes to these things. We have all of the details in front of us, but sometimes it's easy to forget, and it's not even June. Oh, all right. Let's start to break it down a little bit. Now, I know someone's going to argue the case of games like God of War, Ragnarok, the, Horizon Forbidden West games, all of these different titles that Sony is putting out as exclusives that seems to make players want to join their ecosystems. I agree with you that Microsoft is late on that particular party. That game, Sony is definitely winning that game. There's no doubt about that. Microsoft also is going to be playing that game, but Microsoft understands that they're not really going to be able to win that game at this point. So what they've decided is they've carved themselves another game that they are definitely going to win, and they are winning. The evidence shows that that is the case. In fact, if you actually already did forget, remember that there was a thing called Google Stadia that was supposed to provide some kind of a cloud service. But when Game Pass was alive and well and kicking, Stadia could not in any way come close, nor could it even be relevant in the face of Game Pass, because Game Pass was just too valuable. Stadia had to close down. I had my Tom Clancy's The Division 2 copy on Stadia, and they gave me my money back when they left the game. That's to show that Microsoft is in this particular niche right now in a whole different game, and they're absolutely winning. Regardless of what anybody wants to say, they're making the money. This is a game that Sony is not even playing. This is why I think that everybody that is ignoring Game Pass or the animosity towards Game Pass is somewhat misguided. And I've seen some people in our, that are close to me, some people that feel, differently about Game Pass. They've come up with this, particular idea that says, Game Pass seems to reduce the quality of the games that Microsoft is making. And then they'll easily jump in and cite, oh, you see, look at Redfall. This is exactly why we shouldn't have Game Pass. Yo, anybody that says that is about to make me lose my mind, because just recently I just showed you that within the 5 months, Microsoft was able to drop decent games according to what they promised their gamers for Game Pass, third party and first party. Yes, Microsoft owns Minecraft and Microsoft owns Bethesda, who published the game from TangoWorks, Hi-Fi Rush, and they've done that in the very first half of the year. They still have other titles coming around the corner. Starfield is one of them, which we know is not going to be an 11 out of 10 game because the head of Xbox already said that. And you also have other titles in the works. And I think this kind of dichotomy needs to be set very clearly. And everybody's got to be able to calm down and think very carefully as to what exactly is going on. Because many people have interpreted what the developer, what the head of Xbox said as, oh, he's not focusing on making great games. But again, according to what it is that is known in the gaming industry, known not only to say some people, but to everyone, the truth of the matter is there are video games that are in development for the Xbox ecosystem, the so-called games that people are saying that they want. It's not a one and done deal in the sense of saying our business strategy is not to play this game with Sony, but to play an entirely different game where, yes, we're going to be participating in what Sony is basically winning at, but we're going to go carve out our own niche and continue to hold our W's there because it just doesn't make any sense. Most of you watch sports. If you watch anything like the English Premier League, you know that, a club like Crystal Palace is more than likely not going to win the league. Now, there might be the one-off where, like Leicester City won the Premier League, but that was a whole different, conversation. But if you think about how things usually roll, they don't necessarily have what it takes in regard to, say, the funds, the finances, and even the quality of players. For anybody to say, oh, we would love for Leicester City to win the Premier League every year or contend for it in this particular capacity, is they know that they're setting false expectations. So the best thing is to realize where your expectations are. Leicester can still continue to have a viable strategy, or a team like Atletico Madrid, by scouting some of the best players in the world and selling them for a whole bunch of money. Isn't that a viable strategy? Atletico Madrid, they probably won't be winning the Champions League. Real Madrid is going to win them. But by and large, they're going to sell some of the best players to Chelsea and to all of the other clubs. So it doesn't make them a not viable football club. They're just in a place where they're winning in their strategy, even though they're participating in the general game. Man, I wish everybody watched soccer. They'll probably get that, analogy. It's the best analogy in my entire career on YouTube, but I'm sure it's probably going to go over a lot of people's heads. Anyways, let's look at the games that Microsoft is making. So we know that they're making another Fable game. Everything we know so far about the new Fable game. This is an article that was written here by Games Radar. You can read about it if you want to find out more details. We also know that Senua's Saga, the Hellblade 2 game, is also in development. The game has seen some trailers. The developers seem sound in what they know. In fact, they actually are pretty good at what they're doing. It's an Unreal Engine 4 game from the time it was first developed, and the game did a good job. Ninja Theory, this is a studio that, Microsoft acquired. They were in a position where they actually needed, some big, money person behind them. And Phil Spencer was able to go in, give them creative freedom. They're doing their thing. They're enjoying themselves. Go watch some interviews with their, studio head. You'll see it. We also know that there's an Elder Scrolls 6 game in development. Also, Starfield has another release date. So these games are in the works. The games are being made. The games are being developed. It's not like, say, when Phil Spencer said, we're not necessarily in a place where, if we make an 11 out of 10 game, people are going to go trade their Xbox. They're just participating, but they're carving out a niche where they're going to win. It's just that simple. Again, I hold no crazy interest to any of these consoles. They're dead to me. I'm a PC player for the most part. And I know that Game Pass is valuable to me as a PC player and even to the Xbox community, the people that play on Xbox. They can get Game Pass and they will be able to enjoy everything that I've just pointed out as a result of Game Pass being a thing. And not only is Game Pass some kind of a, like some people say, it reduces the quality of these games. No, it doesn't do that. Game Pass actually provides Microsoft a profitable business model that, to me, if continuing the way it is, will in a sense, outperform Sony's own business model from a perspective of annual earnings. We looked at this in a comment when I was actually, one of my audience members was actually asking me a question about this. And I started to kind of break down this stuff because if many people don't necessarily pay attention to it, it's really going to fly over our heads. See, Game Pass right now is in a place where it's bringing in anywhere close to $2-3 billion a year. Just with the announcement that Microsoft was trying to acquire Activision, it increased Game Pass subscriber base from around 18 million to about 25 million. We rounded that figure up from 25 million to somewhere around 20 million and came up with the possibility that after taxes, expenses, and acquisition of third-party games into the Game Pass ecosystem, that Game Pass was still doing somewhere around $2 billion. And that's just from Game Pass by itself in this particular stage. Now, if you want to run the math, I can link a video to you where exactly I did all the mathematics on a simple calculator. But if you think about it, how about Sony's business strategy? Has anybody ever really compared Sony's releases, its AAA releases, and how they may be profitable compared to Game Pass? Well, it's okay. We'll do the math in this video because I think it's quite pertinent. All right, now stick with me. I know this video is long, but all of these details, I'm going to try to squeeze it in here so that we can make sure that I'm not getting any, arguments in the end of the day. Let's look at the year 2022, the year that Elden Ring came out and basically stole the show. In that same year, there were two exclusives from Sony. One of them was Horizon Forbidden West, and the other one was God of War Ragnarok. If we did say a simple mathematic, equation in a sense, we'll realize that in this particular paradigm, that Sony's sales were kind of really high. Now, this article says that first-party sales were up from 11 million units for the same quarter in 2021 to 20 million units in 2022. But when looking at combined software sales, first and third party, the number is slightly down, with 92 million units sold in 2021 versus 86 million views, 86 million sold in, Q3 of year 2022. So when you're looking at God of War's, sales and its milestones, they seem to kind of go ahead and, I don't know, somewhat sandwich the numbers in a sense. Now, the truth of the matter is God of War Ragnarok has sold about 11 million units. That's where I got this number from. So, Game Rant, I hope you guys are correct. Horizon Forbidden West also is claimed to have sold about 8.4 million units. I did the math on a calculator. 8.4 million units at $70 a unit, rounded up to about $66 million or so, $666 million or something like that. In fact, let me punch it into a calculator so I don't go goof myself. Okay, I have it in my history, actually. Yeah, it's about $630 million. That's what I was calculating for, say, Horizon Forbidden West. And then you look at a game like Ragnarok. Ragnarok, basically 11 million copies at $70 a piece. That's $770 million. These two games, their sales are somewhere around $1.3 billion across just two titles. Now, after you remove all of your expenses and the amount of money that Sony used to actually, develop these games, market these games, you're still under the $2 billion mark, whereas Game Pass, with its about 20 million subscribers, is still bringing in over $2 billion, even after you remove expenses. If you say, okay, let's just use $1 billion to run Game Pass and acquire games, Microsoft is still sitting pretty with doing very little. So Game Pass is actually a thorn in the side of Sony because there's not a lot of work that's actually done there. The profitability seems beautiful from a mathematical perspective. It is this profitability that Microsoft seemingly wants to now then use to continue to infuse into projects that gamers are saying that they want. These single player games. And please don't tell me I don't care about Fable. I don't care about, Hellblade or Elder Scrolls. Yo, they'll probably make a game someday that probably suits you. And if you don't care about them, hey, that seems to be like your own preference. Maybe you might need to go to Sony's, platform and enjoy what it is that they're actually bringing forward. I decided to make this video because it's kind of tiring to have to go back and just tell people that, yo, you're grown, right? And you can run the numbers, right? Because I know people may feel some kind of way, but the feeling that you may be feeling some kind of way about has nothing to really do with you wanting Microsoft to go ahead and play this, tic-tac game. That is just for you to feel like your console is, in quote, winning in the same game that Sony is playing. They're just not playing that game and they're just not winning in that game. But the game that they're actually playing, man, they are definitely winning. Now, they will participate. They'll make you your games, or they will make the games that people are talking about. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like that's the, measure or the metric that they're interested in going with. So this is, in my opinion, what really does end this console conversation. The console war is kind of whack. It's really whack and weird in my mind anyways. And I think if people consider these aspects, they'll realize that it's actually quite pointless. If you think that, these franchises that, give you these single player games every year are what it is you want to play, go for it. But if you want a value proposition where you can actually explore games from different, areas and different, sources, then Game Pass seems to be like a really nice option at the end of the day. Because Sony does not have a service like Game Pass. I know people may say PS Plus Extra. Nah, it's not the same thing. You're not getting brand new day one games on PS Plus Extra. In fact, Sony told you that you're not going to be getting those games. They said it's gonna reduce the quality of the games, is what they said. That's a big fat lie. Oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. Peace out.